welcome to the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Matt Delaney. Joining me this week again, Tracy. Is it Mike?
Hello.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Okay, how you doing?
Good.
I was a caller that you alluded to last week that was talking about the moral chaos that people didn't have.
Yeah.
If they weren't kind of... Well, anyway, I'm not really trying to be oppressive. I don't have an agenda or anything. I'm not, burning a flag or anything. I'm just saying that I think of religion kind of like as a... Well, everybody has a father and a mother, presumably. Most people are lucky enough to. That guides you through life and says, no, son, don't beat up that little kid. That's your friend. Don't hit people, because it's a natural tendency of kids to be vicious to each other. It's just natural.
Actually, it's not true.
Yeah, I think they're
and a new study has shown that kids are more prone to altruism than anything.
Okay, that's great in the right environment, I guess, where they don't see violence.
Right. I think if they're not being, if corporal punishment is not in the home, they are less likely to think of hitting someone as a means of communication.
Anyway, go ahead.
So that feeds my argument that proper upbringing, because I had a very loving mother, very good example. My mother was, maybe there's nobody better than my mother. My mother was as good as it gets. As far as teaching us how to good people be good to each other.
My mother's way better than your mom.
My mom's better than your mom. Well, anyway.
Well, it's crazy, so I'm not even getting in this.
Well, anyway, or it could be your father, it could be an uncle, it could be a grandmother, but somebody who teaches you through life, you know what I'm saying? And sets those examples. I kind of think of religion as kind of like a...
I could see that if it weren't for the fact that the lessons that, at least Christianity and some of the others, the lessons that it teaches are often immoral.
Right, okay. There's some collateral damage to it. There's no doubt about that they teach all this other nonsense that's...
Sure, so why not check out all the other nonsense and keep the things that are actually good, which I think is what secular parents end up doing. Let's actually teach a kid, use their natural empathy of, would you want somebody to do that to you? That's a really simple training tool. And kids get that right off the bat. They don't need any threat of hell or punishment. You don't even have to resort to a stick or carrot. Just their own empathy of saying, I'd really hate it if somebody did that to me, is enough to at least start moving that idea forward. Okay,
see, that's what I've been looking for since I've been listening to the show for the last few years and calling in. I never had been around a secular family or had friends who had secular, from them people. I've had people who've run in to be jaded and become secular, but I haven't seen anybody who's... I'm not saying you're jaded. That's a bad thing to say, but you know what
I might be jaded.
Jaded about religion, I mean.
I might be jaded, depends on, what we're actually talking about.
Jaded about religion, I'm not jaded about life. But, I mean, I've never known what goes on in a secular household. I know I'm making it sound really...
It's not a surprise. I mean, basically, what the information that most people get about who atheists are or who secularists are or what they do comes from people who don't know. It comes from, what their friend heard on the news or what the news feels like reporting or what their preacher has to say about the evil that these people are doing. Russell did a series of shows over the past couple of years on atheist parenting and things like that. He covered a lot of these topics really well. We've talked about secular morality, secular ethics, things like that in the past. Russell's shows actually go into parenting a little bit more. I think he may touch on that again in the future, especially as his son gets older. Nobody's going to be a perfect parent. Nobody's going to get it all right. Secular, religious, it doesn't matter. And also there are differences within individuals where you could have two very good parents, religious or not, who teach a child to the best of their ability. And that person still grows up, for whatever reason, to just be horrible. I mean, how many times do we have to hear about these sons and daughters of ministers who are drug abusers, murderers, things like that? To know that, okay, while this can be used as a tool, there's no reason to think it's any more effective than a secular method. And certainly there may be reason to think that it's less effective, considering that it also comes with a lot of baggage that I personally would consider immoral.
So essentially the golden rule is kind of the standard that you would use as
kind of, only I'd go back to the ethics of reciprocity, which is the golden rule before Jesus modified it. Because the quote attributed to Jesus is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In actuality, I'd like people to be brutally honest with me, but that doesn't mean they want me to be brutally honest in return. So a much better application would be to do unto others as they would have you do unto them. And while that's not all inclusive either, I'm not going to be mean to somebody just because they want me to be mean to it. There's no clear solution, but the general principle of the ethic of reciprocity is a fairly valid one.
Gotta live and let live.
Yeah, it's not a law. It's a rule of thumb. If you're nice to people, generally they're probably going to be nice to you too.
Okay. I had one more thing I wanted to add, and then I'll get off. Is that
Sure.
When you were talking about the wafers last week, and I watched that show and it was hilarious. I think the reason you can think of that as a flag burning in a way, a religious flag burning. That's why you got all those lunatic fringe and stuff coming off on you.
Yeah, well,
it was like if you're burning a flag.
It's not just lunatic fringe, and I'll let you go, but I'll address this afterwards. Thanks a lot for the call, Mike.
Thanks. Yep.
It's not just lunatic fringe. There are a number of atheists who were upset with what we did last week, because it doesn't necessarily, what it does is, in the minds of some people, it portrays us as these are the evil atheists who are ready to come into your house and take your Bibles away, or we're going to make Christianity illegal. I can see that. I can see how some people might get that impression. In actual fact, I was having a bit of fun and trying to express a point that while you consider it sacred, I don't. And by the way, when you want to talk about flag burning, and this is just me, I got no problem with that either. It's just a symbol. Blind patriotism to me is just as abominable as blind faith in a religion. It's great. I love the United States. I'm happy to be in the United States. I am proud of what my ancestors have done to ensure my freedoms, my rights, the ones I exercise on here, particularly the freedoms of expression, thought, and speech. I served my country. I was in the Navy for over 8 years. I was in the Gulf War along with a number of other things. I don't regret that time. I'm not a complete pacifist. But blind patriotism is responsible for far more harm than good. Be proud of your country because it's doing good things, not just because it's your country. Don't treat your country like it's a football team, where, oh, my team's the best. It doesnn't matter that we went 12-0 or 0-12 last year, and it's silly. Be proud of things for good reasons, all things. It doesn't matter. And if you're proud of your religious beliefs, make sure it's for good reason. So far, I can't see much of one. I have yet to have, and I've been making this request for years on the show, for somebody to provide any example of any real, tangible, verifiable benefit of religion that can't be accomplished by secular means. Nobody's done it. Nobody's even made an attempt, I don't think. I don't think a single religious person has called in and said, I've got it. This is what religion offers, and it's real, and you can't get this by secular means. This should be simple. This should be trivial. All of you who left church this morning should be able to open your Bibles or think or recall some moment in your life where religion has done something that is real and tangible and could not be accomplished by secular means. And yet, nobody does. And yet you don't think about that? You don't wonder? Maybe you're putting too much emphasis on it. Like Russell's dad talks about, I had a headache, I took an aspirin and said a prayer and I got better. And you're putting the emphasis on the prayer instead of the aspirin, where there's actual evidence. I mean, it's possible that taking an aspirin and saying a prayer, that God reached down and fiddled with your brain to make the headache go away. But it's more likely, and the evidence favors the aspirin